Welcome to the program. I'm your host, Neal Howard. Thank you so much for joining us here on Health Professional Radio. My guests are Sue Matthews, along with her sister, Andrea Cohane. And they're joining us on the program today to talk about their upcoming book, Paint Your Hair Blue. The book tells the story of Taylor Matthews, a child with cancer. They're also going to talk about how their family stayed strong, some of the lessons that they learned throughout, and also going to talk about the Taylor Matthews Foundation that raised millions for pediatric cancer. Welcome to the program, both Sue and Andrea. How are you both?
Oh, we're great. Thank you for having us.
Thank you, Neal.
Great. Sue, you're the president of this foundation. Talk a little bit about why you started the foundation in the first place, and just a little bit of background about yourself.
You know what? My daughter was Taylor was diagnosed with cancer when she was 11 years old, and she actually founded the foundation. The shock of diagnosis led us within the first week to find out the protocol for her particular disease was 30 to 40 years old, and they've not made any progress in that. It's now 50 years old, the protocol. So she was shocked, we were shocked, and her immediate response was, Mommy, I want to help other children. Let's do this.
Just
so of course, with the help of, automatically, within the first month. Mm-hmm. And you know what? Honestly, the foundation, she outlived her diagnosis by years, and I truly think helping other children and funding pediatric cancer research was part of the cure for her. Helping others was something she really wanted to do in life.
You know, even though you're writing a book, you've got a book coming out, you and your sister, and you're raising awareness through this foundation that your daughter founded. You say there's absolutely no progress has been made in better diagnosis of this condition. You say people aren't diagnosed, they have this, but they're not diagnosed until much later in life, or was it an advanced form?
No, she was most pediatric. This is, I'm saying, the 30 or 50-year protocol for her particular type of cancer, which is a very rare one. They have made tremendous progress in other type of cancers.
Okay.
So, but still not in her type of cancer. And mostly sarcomas, which she had a sarcoma, they've made very little progress with metastatic sarcoma. So I was just at a pediatric oncology conference last week, which brought doctors from across the country. They're really trying to do something about it, but they have not had success.
Andrea, what experience had you had with cancer prior to your niece's diagnosis?
I hadn't had any real experience with cancer before Taylor's diagnosis. Obviously, we all know people, we're all touched by it in some way, but we were not immediately touched. And I have to say, you always hear stories about it happening to somebody else, and then when it happens in your own family, it's incredibly shocking, especially to an 11-year-old girl. Taylor literally had never been on an antibiotic. She was the healthiest, most energetic child. And we used to laugh at her because if anyone else was sick, Taylor was always like, she was running in the other direction. Mm-hmm. And then for it to happen to her was truly shocking.
You're co-writing this book with your sisters, Paint Your Hair Blue. What is the significance of the title? Well,
Taylor's favorite color was blue to start with, but the title of Paint Your Hair Blue really epitomizes my daughter. Everything was fun to her in life. She was quite a prankster, and she was like that from birth, but cancer was not going to stop her from being that way. So you generally lose your hair in 10 to 14 days after your first round of chemotherapy. She would tell the other kids, have fun with it. If you're a little girl, dye your hair pink. If you want, dye it your favorite color. If you're a boy, cut it in a mohawk, do layers, spike it. So she really was helping other children in the hospital, and she lost her hair twice and had a lot of fun with it.
Seeing something bright in a dark situation.
Yeah, that's what the book, obviously, we know at the end that she passes. However, the book truly is a celebration of her life. She did not let cancer get her down. We snuck out of the hospital, whatever we had to do to make her happy. She wasn't going to pain, suffering. It wasn't going to, I know if she was here today and she would tell me she didn't suffer. I taught her how to drive when she was 12, which is clearly against the rules. But she had no immune system, So what will we do? We were locked in our house.
There you go.
It wasn't until I was writing the book that I realized she didn't have insurance.
So, Andrea, when you were writing this book, what were some of the things that were going through your mind? I mean, you know, she's not your daughter, but she's the closest thing to a daughter. Talk about how the family had to come together. I guess it drastically changed the lives of everyone. I mean, how much were you helping out when you weren't living, you know, right there on the spot?
Well, you know, first of all, Taylor, she got so much joy when our two families were together. It was really her, you know, when they asked her, Taylor, you know, you have a few days off, what do you want to do? It was always, she used to call me Aunt Annie, and she always wanted to be with Aunt Annie. And my daughter, who's now 16, who was, you know, a baby at the time, and she wanted to be with her cousin and my husband. When we were all together, she didn't have cancer anymore. It was just about really having so much fun and laughing and celebrating the moment. I tried to be there as much as I possibly could, both because when Taylor was sick, all you wanted to do was grant her every wish. And if there was any way I could be there, I would, because I knew it made her so happy. And I had to support my sister, who really didn't have, you know, other family around who was willing to help her out. But unfortunately, I didn't live in the same state as she did. In fact, I lived in London for part of it, but I did come as much as possible. And it's those memories that were, you know, that carry me through today, that carried us through writing the book.
Sue, is there any contribution from any of your other children to the book? Maybe some of their experiences that are talked about in this book, Paint Your Hair Blue?
You know what? I wrote some of their experiences, and there is a chapter called Lost Siblings, because the siblings really, you know, your mom, I was a stay-at-home mom. Suddenly I disappeared for 5 years. Everyone asked my other daughters, how are your parents? How is Taylor after she passed? They weren't even recognized. So tremendously affected my other daughters. They are written about and part of the book, and they know everything that was written about with them. But honestly, it's too difficult for them to read, and they don't want to relive the experience at this point. But they will when they're ready.
What is it that you think can be done to fund pediatric cancer research and sort of improve some of the treatments for kids?
Well, right now we're funding precision medicine, which is when you take a child's germ line and sequence it to look for DNA mutations. And they are finding drugs to block the DNA mutation, or at least give the children a much less toxic protocol. Because the long-term survivorship effects are very difficult when you have a toxic treatment. And the book has tremendously raised awareness for pediatric cancer. Our donations are up tremendously, which is so wonderful, something that Taylor would want. Her legacy continues through increased donations, and the book is hopefully going to help a lot of parents or anyone with cancer or chronic illness.
Andrea, what advice would you give to other family members who might be in the same position that you found yourself in with your niece?
I would say that, you know, you really have to just be present and be very sensitive. Every person is so different as to, you know, what they want and need. But, you know, any time that you can give, these parents have to go and be in the hospital for, you know, days and months on end, and anybody that can come and join them and bring some joy. Kids are kids no matter what. Kids want to have fun no matter what. So if you can bring the fun, you're really, really going to help, you know, the family.
Sue, Andrea, a pleasure. Thank you both for coming in today. Sue Matthews and her sister, Andrea Cohane, authors of the book Paint Your Hair Blue, due out June of this year, telling the story of Taylor Matthews, a child with cancer, and the founder of the Taylor Matthews Foundation. Thank you both.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You've been listening to Health Professional Radio. I'm your host, Neal Howard. Transcripts and audio of this program are available at healthprofessionalradio.com.au and also at hpr.fm. You can subscribe to this podcast on iTunes, listen in, and download at SoundCloud. And be sure to visit our affiliates page at healthprofessionalradio.com.au and hpr.fm.